I never thought I'd be the guy who walks away from a boss who gave him everything. But when you're offered double your salary at a better company, loyalty starts to sound like a word they use to keep you underpaid. I learned that the hard way, and looking back, I still think I was right. I got hired at my first job right out of college. I was 22, fresh-faced, didn't know a thing about the industry. My boss took me under his wing. He trained me from the ground up, every system, every process, every client relationship. He fought for my promotions. In 6 years, my salary doubled. I started at 60,000 and by the end I was making 120. That's a big jump for someone who walked in with zero experience. I respected that man, I still do. Then the offer came. A more prestigious company, better growth opportunities, and a salary that made my eyes water. 250,000 a year plus stock options. That's more than what my boss probably made. The new company was a direct competitor, but I didn't care about that. What I cared about was the math. Double the money, better long-term potential. I didn't even hesitate. But I also knew my boss wouldn't be able to match it. He didn't have that kind of political capital, and honestly, I didn't want to put him in that position. So I wrote my resignation letter, planned a smooth transition, and scheduled a meeting for a Tuesday afternoon. I thought I was being respectful by not asking for something I knew he couldn't give. I was wrong about how he'd take it. We sat down in his office, same chairs we'd used for 100 one-on-ones. I handed him the letter. He read it, set it down, and looked at me like I'd punched him. 6 years, he said. I gave you everything I had. I trained you. I promoted you. I protected you from the corporate nonsense. And this is how you repay me. I didn't scream. I kept my voice calm. I paid you back with my work every day. I gave this company everything I had for 6 years. We're even. Arguably, you got a bargain because I could have left 2 years ago for more money. He didn't like that. His face went red and he started talking about loyalty, about how it's a character flaw to just walk away, how this was a betrayal. I listened and I kept my cool, but inside I was thinking loyalty to a paycheck. To a company that would fire me in a heartbeat if the numbers didn't work. I've seen people with 20 years of tenure get handed a pink slip and not a single tear shed the next morning. Why should I be any different? The conversation got heated. We stayed professional, but you could feel the anger in the air. He asked me if I'd even thought about what I was doing to him personally. I said, I respect you, but respect doesn't mean I have to stay at a job that pays me half what I'm worth. That's not loyalty, that's foolishness. He didn't have an answer for that. I left the office, gave my 2 weeks, and trained my replacement. The last day was awkward. We shook hands, but the warmth was gone. My wife and some friends told me I was being cold and calculating. They said I should have shown more gratitude, but I don't see it that way. I gave them 6 years of hard work and they paid me a fair wage. Both sides got what they wanted. The only difference is that I decided to want more. The Reddit verdict was not the asshole, and I stand by that. Walking away from that relationship, because it was a relationship, not just a job, was the right call. But that experience also opened my eyes to something bigger. Toxic relationships don't just happen at work. They happen with the people you trust most. A few months after that whole drama, I read a post from a woman whose best friend tried to destroy her marriage. That one hit different. It wasn't about money. It was about someone you love trying to burn your life down for reasons you can't even understand. She wrote about meeting her best friend when she was 11. Fresh off a plane in a new country, scared, not speaking the language well, her sister-in-law introduced them and that friendship became her anchor. They grew up together, navigated school, boyfriends, college, careers. By the time she was 29, she was married to a good man and had a 2-year-old son. She thought everything was solid. She worked in an office from 9 to 2 in the afternoon. Her husband's office was 5 minutes away, so sometimes on her break she'd grab a second breakfast and walk over to see him. Simple, normal life. She'd mentioned to her best friend whenever she had to travel for work, a conference in another city, a client meeting, just casual stuff. Last week she had a work trip planned for Wednesday. But Tuesday night a red alert came in about the weather, severe flooding expected. The trip got canceled. So Wednesday morning she stayed home with her son. Her husband went out at 6 to check on his business and put up flood protection, but by 7:30 he was back making breakfast for the family. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. They didn't go anywhere until Friday. The whole day was just the three of them inside, safe, boring, normal. On Saturday she went to their usual gym class. Her best friend was there looking serious. We need to talk in private. So they went to the car, sat in the front seats, and her friend took a breath. On Wednesday, she said, I saw your husband with a woman, they were making out, and your kid was in the car. My heart stopped. That's what she wrote. Her heart stopped. She sat there frozen, her mind racing. Then slowly a memory clicked into place. Wednesday, she was home all day with her husband and her son. They hadn't even left the house. But she didn't scream. She just looked at her friend and said, tell me again. What time did you say you saw them? On Wednesday, she said, I saw your husband with a woman, they were making out, and your kid was in the car. I asked her 3 times if she was sure it was this week's Wednesday. 3 times she said yes. I asked about the time, around 11 in the morning, she said. During the red alert, yes. She described it in detail. My husband's arm around a gorgeous blonde, their faces locked, the car seat visible through the back window. She even named the street. I sat there in the driver's seat of my own car, gym bag on the floor, sweat still drying on my neck. And I felt this weird calm wash over me because I knew she was lying. My husband had been home beside me all day. We'd made pancakes together while our son sat in his high chair. We'd watched cartoons. I had texted her home safe at 3 in the afternoon. But she had messaged me first asking if I was back from the trip. She hadn't asked about my husband. She'd asked about me. I didn't call her out right then. I just said, "That's weird. Let me talk to my husband and get back to you." She looked disappointed. I think she expected me to break down right there in the parking lot. I didn't give her that. When I got home, I told my husband everything. He went pale, then he got angry, not at me, at her. He said, "We need to figure out why she would do this." So we started going back through our messages, our calendar. That Wednesday, I had mentioned to Sarah the week before that I'd be traveling. She knew the city, she knew the hotel, she knew the weather alert. She fabricated the whole thing. We called her. I put it on speaker. I said, "Sarah, I talked to my husband. Says he was home all day Wednesday, and I was there too. Our son was there. We didn't leave the house." Silence. Then she stammered, "No, I must have confused the day. It was Tuesday or maybe Thursday." I said, "You told me 3 times it was Wednesday. You described the street, you described the woman, you said you saw our son in the car." More silence. Then she started crying. "I'm so sorry. I was just trying to protect you. I thought I saw something. I must have imagined it." But I knew. You don't imagine that level of detail. You don't lie 3 times in a row unless you're trying to burn something down. I asked her, "Why do you want to see me divorced and alone?" She didn't answer. She just kept apologizing. I hung up. I haven't spoken to her since. I told my husband I don't want her in our lives anymore. He agrees, but it still haunts me. What would have happened if I hadn't been home that day? What if the trip hadn't been canceled? I would have believed her. I would have confronted him. I could have destroyed my marriage based on a lie from someone I trusted since I was 11 years old. That's the thing about toxic relationships. Sometimes they don't look toxic at first. They look like friendship. They look like loyalty. But underneath, there's jealousy, resentment, a need to control or sabotage. I'm glad I trusted my memory more than her story, because that one moment of clarity saved my family. Walking away from a friend like that isn't the same as walking away from a boss. It's messier. It hurts more, but it's still necessary. You have to protect the people who actually have your back, not the ones who pretend to while sharpening a knife. Another story I read around that time was from a woman who was debating whether to tell her close friend not to marry his fiancé. She'd known the guy since college. They were tight, hung out regularly. He'd been with his fiancée for about 6 or 7 years, engaged for 2. The wedding was in a month. At first, the fiancée seemed shy and reserved. That was fine, not everyone needs to be loud. But over the last couple of years, she'd opened up more. And what came out wasn't great. She was insanely insecure and anxious. She complained about everything, his parents' small requests, even the nice things they did for her. She'd air their dirty laundry in front of their friend group, arguing about personal stuff he clearly wanted to keep private. She'd be cruel to him, dismissive, unfair, and then smile like nothing happened. The real issue came up one night when the 4 of them were out for dinner. The fiancé mentioned something about their future and the guy looked at the floor. Later, in private, he told his friend that they had a fundamental disagreement about whether to have kids. He wanted them. She didn't. But she kept saying she might change her mind, and he was holding on to that hope. The friend wanted to say something. But how do you tell a guy you love who's about to marry someone that you think he's making a mistake? That his fiancé is selfish and emotionally draining, that a disagreement about kids is a deal-breaker. She wrestled with it for weeks. She talked to her own girlfriend. She read Reddit comments. Everyone said mind your business, but also if you care about him, say something before it's too late. I don't know what she eventually did. But I think about that situation a lot, because sometimes walking away from a toxic relationship means helping someone else walk away before they're trapped. It's not easy. It's not clean, but it's honest. Then there was the story that really broke me. A guy married to his husband for 3 years, together for 6. They had a 7-year-old son they'd adopted together. The husband was bisexual, had an ex-wife. The guy's family was homophobic and kept pushing him to get back with the ex. The husband's birthday party for their son turned into a nightmare when the mother-in-law invited the ex without telling anyone. The guy stayed calm for the kid's sake. But when he went inside to look for his husband, he found him in the old bedroom with the ex-wife taking their clothes off. He didn't scream. He just left, went back to the party, helped cut the cake. His husband and the ex came out later, and the husband had the nerve to say he was disrespectful for cutting the cake without him. The guy responded, "I'm sorry, I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." And then he took their son and left. That one hit me hard because it's not just a boss or a friend, it's the person you married, the person you chose to build a life with, and they throw it away for a quick fuck with their ex in their childhood bedroom. The guy didn't scream. He didn't cry, he just walked away. That's the strength I want to have. So yeah, I've walked away from a boss who demanded loyalty I couldn't afford. I walked away from a best friend who tried to burn my marriage down. I've watched others walk away from fiancés and husbands who didn't deserve them. And every time it's the same lesson: loyalty is earned, not owed. And sometimes the only healthy thing to do is leave. That's not the only kind of walking away, though. Sometimes it's about a job you gave everything to. I read about a guy who worked at his first job for 6 years. They trained him from ground zero, taught him everything. His boss was great, fought for his promotions, doubled his salary over that time. But then he got an offer from a more prestigious company with better growth and double the salary. We're talking 120,000 jumping to 250. Stock options, the whole package. He didn't think twice. He knew his old boss couldn't match that. Hell, the new comp was probably more than his boss's salary. So he gave his notice, laid out a transition plan, tried to be respectful. But his boss was devastated, angry. They stayed professional, but it got heated. The boss questioned his loyalty like it was a character flaw, and the guy said exactly what I've always thought. I paid you and the company back with my hard work. We're even. Arguably, you got a bargain because I could have jumped ship 2 years ago. He didn't say that last part out loud, but he wanted to. His wife and some friends called him cold, calculating. They said he should have shown more loyalty because the company gave him so much. But he posted on Reddit asking if he was the asshole. The verdict came back, not the asshole. And reading it, I felt that, because loyalty to a job, what does that even mean? Companies hand out pink slips after 2 decades and don't shed a tear. You give them your best years and they'll replace you by Monday. Walking away for double the money isn't disloyal, it's smart. It's taking care of yourself. I thought about that when I left my own boss. I wasn't doubling my salary, but I was leaving a place where I'd been underpaid and overworked for years. My boss was nice enough, but nice doesn't pay rent. She cried when I gave my notice, said she thought we were a family. I said families don't expect you to stay for less than you're worth. She didn't talk to me after that, but I slept better. Sometimes the people who accuse you of disloyalty are the ones who benefit from your silence. They want you to stay small so they can feel big. Walking away isn't just about the money, it's about refusing to be a doormat. Then there was the story that kept me up at night, the one I mentioned earlier about the husband and the ex-wife. That guy's update came out a few weeks later. He'd found out more. After he took his son and left the birthday party, he stayed at a hotel. His husband kept calling, texting, begging him to come home. Said it was a mistake, that Allison meant nothing, that his family pressured him. The guy ignored it. He filed for divorce, but during the divorce proceedings, the truth came out. Allison had a 14-year-old daughter, a daughter from a previous relationship, and it turned out that Peter, the husband, had been sleeping with Allison for years, not just that one time. He'd been having an affair since before they adopted Jack. And worse, Allison's daughter, she was Peter's biological child. He'd gotten Allison pregnant when they were still married, and she'd hidden the pregnancy, given birth, raised the girl as her own from a previous relationship. The guy's mother-in-law had known, the whole family had known, they'd been covering it up. The guy posted an update saying he felt sick, that his 7-year-old son had a half-sister he'd never known about, that his husband had been lying to him for their entire marriage. That the ex-wife had been sneaking around, bringing the daughter over, pretending she was just a friend's kid. And the guy had believed it. He said he didn't scream, he just sat in his car and cried for an hour. Then he called his lawyer and told her to push for full custody. He never wanted to see Peter again. Reading that, I realized walking away from a toxic relationship isn't always a single event, it's a process. You think you've left, but then new information comes out and you have to leave all over again. The betrayal doesn't stop just because you're gone, it echoes. I think about that guy a lot, how he stayed calm at the party, put his son first. How he found the strength to walk out when his husband was right there, still smelling of her. How he didn't scream or throw things, he just left. That's not weakness, that's the hardest kind of strength. And it reminded me of something else I read, a post from a woman whose best friend tried to sabotage her marriage by making up a story about her husband cheating. She didn't scream either, she asked questions, she trusted her own memory. And when the lie fell apart, she walked away from a friendship she'd had since she was 11 years old. That's what I'm learning. Loyalty is earned, not owed. And sometimes the only healthy thing to do is leave, whether it's a boss, a friend, or a spouse. You don't owe them your silence. You don't owe them your pain, you owe yourself the chance to start over. But let me go back to that best friend story because it deserves more attention. The one where the friend tried to make the victim think her husband was cheating. That post was from a woman who'd known her best friend since she was 11 years old. They met when her family moved to a new country. Her sister-in-law introduced them and they just clicked. For 18 years, they were inseparable. Same age, same city, overlapping friend groups, but separate enough to have their own lives. She was 29, married to a guy she'd been with since she was in her early 20s. They had a 2-year-old son. Life was busy. She worked in an office from 9 to 2 most days with a 30-minute break she'd use for a second breakfast. Sometimes she'd walk 5 minutes to her husband's office. Sometimes she'd hit a cafe. Her best friend, Sarah, knew her schedule. She'd mention work trips casually like, oh, I have to go to another city next Wednesday. Just small talk. That Wednesday, there was a red alert for flooding. Severe weather warnings, the whole city bracing. Her work trip got canceled. She stayed home with her toddler while her husband went out at 6 in the morning to secure his business, put up flood barriers. By 7:30, he was back making breakfast. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. She and her husband and their kid just hung out, didn't leave the house until Friday. Then Saturday comes, she and Sarah go to the same gym class. After class, Sarah pulls her aside, says they need to talk in private. They go to her car and Sarah drops this bomb. On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out. Your kid was in the car. The woman froze, her brain short-circuited, but then slowly she remembered. She'd been home with her husband all day, her kid never left the house. She asked 3 times if Sarah was sure it was this Wednesday. Sarah confirmed 3 times. She asked the time, about 11 in the morning. She asked if it was during the red alert. Sarah said yes. She asked if she was 100% sure. And Sarah launched into this detailed description, her husband making out with a gorgeous blonde Barbie lookalike in a parking lot, the toddler watching from the car seat. The woman didn't scream, she didn't cry. She just said, "That's weird because I was home with him all day, we didn't leave the house." Sarah's face went pale, she started backpedaling. Maybe it was a different day, maybe I got the dates mixed up. But the woman had already pulled up her texts. She showed Sarah the cancellation notice from Tuesday night, showed her a photo of her husband making pancakes at 7:30 Wednesday morning. The lie fell apart in seconds. The next day, the woman texted Sarah, "Why did you do that?" Sarah claimed she was just trying to protect her, that she must have misremembered. But she also slipped and said, "I just thought if you saw the message first, you'd believe me before he could gaslight you." That sentence gave it away. Sarah had planned it. She wanted the woman to think her husband was cheating, to confront him, to blow up her marriage. Why? Maybe jealousy, maybe loneliness. Maybe she wanted the woman to be a single mom so they could travel together, hang out more. The woman's real husband was a solid guy, a good dad. Sarah didn't have that, so she tried to tear it down. The woman cut her off, blocked her number, unfriended her, told their mutual friends what happened. Some didn't believe it. Sarah would never do that, they said, but the woman knew what she heard, what she saw. She walked away from an 18-year friendship without looking back. I read that and thought, that's exactly the kind of walkaway I need to learn. No drama, no screaming match, just facts, just trust in your own memory. She didn't doubt herself for a second. She knew she was home that day. She knew her husband was with her. And she knew that anyone who would make up a story like that was not a friend. That's the thing about toxic relationships. They don't always come with bruises or screaming fights. Sometimes they come with a concerned face and a "I'm just looking out for you." The poison is hidden inside a hug, and you have to be willing to see it for what it is, even when it hurts. Another story that stuck with me was from a woman who had a close friend named Mark. They'd known each other since college. Mark was getting married in a month to a woman named Laura, his fiancée of 6 years. At first, everyone liked Laura. She was shy, reserved, seemed like a good match for Mark, who had a strong personality and could be a bit domineering in arguments. But over the last 2 or 3 years, Laura had opened up. And with that opening, a lot of ugly stuff came out. The woman's girlfriend, Julie, became close with Laura. The four of them hung out regularly and they started noticing problems. Laura was insanely insecure and anxious. She complained constantly about wedding details, small requests from Mark's parents, even the nice things they did for her. She'd air their dirty laundry in front of friends, argue with Mark about deeply personal stuff while everyone else sat there awkwardly. She'd be cruel to him, cutting remarks, passive-aggressive jabs, and underneath all of it, there was a fundamental disagreement that they'd apparently been sweeping under the rug for years. The woman never said exactly what the issue was in her post, but she hinted. Something like whether to have kids, or maybe something even more fundamental. She said it was a deal-breaker level disagreement. Mark was firmly on one side, Laura was firmly on the other, and neither would budge. The wedding was a month away, invitations sent, deposits paid. The woman was tormented. Should she say something to Mark? She cared about him. She didn't want to see him trapped in a miserable marriage, but she also didn't want to be the person who sabotages a wedding. She talked to Julie, to other friends. Some said, "Mind your business." Others said, "If you really care, you have an obligation to speak up before he signs the papers." She posted on Reddit asking for advice. The comments were mixed. Some people called her exhausting. Some said they didn't like any of the people involved. But a lot said, if you know they're fundamentally incompatible, say something. It might save him years of pain. I never saw an update. I don't know if she told him. I don't know if they got married or called it off. But I think about that situation a lot, because sometimes walking away isn't about your own relationship. It's about helping someone else see the red flags before it's too late, and that's a different kind of hard. You risk losing a friend either way. That story hit close to home for me. I've been on both sides. I've had friends warn me about toxic partners and I didn't listen. I thought they were jealous, meddling. Turned out they were right. And I've also been the one who watched a friend marry the wrong person and said nothing. That guilt lingers. So when I read about that woman torn between loyalty to her friend and the truth she could see, I felt it. She was walking a tightrope. And sometimes the only way to stay sane is to walk away from the rope itself. Leave the situation. Let people make their own mistakes, but if you care, you have to try. I still don't know if I'd have the courage to say something. But I know I'd rather be the person who tried and was rejected than the person who stayed silent and watched a friend drown. That's what I'm taking from all these stories. Walking away isn't just one big dramatic exit. It's 1,000 small decisions. Leaving a job that demands loyalty but pays peanuts. Cutting off a friend who lies to your face. Speaking up when you see someone about to make a terrible mistake. Staying calm when your husband cheats on you at your son's birthday party. Trusting your memory when someone tries to rewrite your reality. Every single one of those is an act of self-respect, and every single one hurts. But the alternative, staying, pretending, accepting less than you deserve, that hurts worse. I know because I've done it. I stayed at jobs that drained me. I stayed in friendships that made me feel small. I watched people I loved marry people who were wrong for them and said nothing. And on the other side of all that staying, I didn't find peace. I found resentment. Walking away is a muscle. You have to exercise it. The first time feels like breaking a bone. The second time, it's a sprain. The third time, it's a stretch. Eventually, it becomes automatic. You recognize toxic patterns faster. You trust your gut. You don't need permission to leave. I'm not there yet, but every time I read a story like these, I get a little stronger. I remember that loyalty is a two-way street, that love without respect is just control, that silence is not the same as kindness. And I remember that I can always walk away, even when it's hard, even when it's messy, even when I'm scared. Especially then, I had a different kind of walking away story that I didn't even realize I needed to hear until I read it. It was about a guy, 32, who had been at his first job out of college for 6 years. He started from the ground up, they trained him on everything, and his boss fought for his promotions. In those 6 years, his salary doubled from 60 to 120,000. That's a big deal for a kid fresh out of school. He respected that boss, thought of him as a mentor even. Then he got an offer from a more prestigious company. Double the salary, 250,000 plus stock. That's the kind of money that changes your life, pays off your parents' mortgage, sets up your kid's college fund. He knew his old boss couldn't match it. The new comp was partially stock in the new company, and the salary was probably more than the boss himself made. So he didn't even ask. He just wrote up his transition plan, gave his notice, and sat down to explain. The boss was devastated, angry. He didn't yell, but it got heated. He questioned the guy's loyalty like it was a character flaw, like he owed something more. The guy said, "I paid you and the company back with my hard work. We're even. If anything, you got a bargain because I could have jumped ship for more money 2 years ago." He didn't say that last part out loud, but he thought it. His wife and some friends called him cold, calculating. They said he should have shown more loyalty because the company gave him so much, but the guy didn't buy it. He'd seen people walk out the door after 2 decades with a pink slip and no one shed a tear the next morning. What does loyalty to a job even mean? You give them your time, your skills, your energy. They give you a paycheck, that's the deal. He wasn't a slave, he wasn't a child, he was an employee. I read that and thought, yeah. That's the same kind of toxic relationship, just wearing a suit. People tell you you're supposed to be grateful, to stick it out because they gave you a chance. But they didn't give you anything, you earned it, and when you leave, they'll replace you in a week. I walked away from a job like that once. I felt guilty for months. His story made me realize I shouldn't have. Another story, this one was brutal, and it's still ongoing, I think. A guy, 27, married to his husband Peter, 37. They'd been together 6 years, married 3. Peter had an ex-wife, Allison, same age as him. He was bisexual, and the guy had no problem with that. His problem was Peter's family. They were homophobic, always telling Peter he should get back together with Allison. They had a son, Jack, 7, adopted after the marriage. The guy loved that kid like he was his own. For Jack's birthday, they went to Peter's family's town. The mother-in-law invited Allison without telling anyone. She showed up in the middle of the party. The guy didn't want to ruin Jack's day, so he stayed quiet, kept playing with the kids, cutting cake, opening presents. Then he noticed Peter and Allison were missing. He went inside, looked around, found them in Peter's old bedroom, taking their clothes off. He stood there for a second, frozen, then he walked out, went back to the party, smiled, cut the cake, waited until guests started leaving. That's when Peter and Allison came back downstairs. Peter pulled him aside and said, "You shouldn't have cut the cake without me, it was disrespectful." The guy looked at him and said, "I'm sorry, I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." Peter went quiet. The guy took Jack and left for the hotel, put Jack to bed, and then the text started. Peter begging, Allison saying it was a mistake. Then later that night, she showed up at the hotel room, told the guy, "You don't understand our connection, we have a history, you're just a phase." He didn't scream, he didn't cry, he just said, "Get out or I'll call the cops." She left. The next day, he took Jack and went back home, started talking to a lawyer. Peter came back a day later, crying, apologizing, said Allison meant nothing, that he was drunk, that it was the stress of the family. The guy didn't buy it. He found out later that Peter had been in contact with Allison for months, emotional affair at least. The family had been pushing it, and then he found out something that made him sick. He hired a private investigator because Allison had a past. She was older than Peter, and when they first got together, she was 30 and he was 23. That's a gap, but not illegal. But the investigator found evidence that Allison had been grooming Peter since he was a minor. They'd met when he was 7. She was 24, and she'd waited until he turned 18 to start a relationship. The guy realized his husband had been a victim. That didn't excuse the cheating, but it explained the hold she had on him. He filed for divorce. Peter begged for a second chance, promised therapy. The guy said no. He said, "I can't trust you, and I can't raise our son around her. You need to deal with your trauma, but I can't be your support system while you do it. I have to protect Jack." That story wrecked me, not just because of the betrayal, but because of the slow burn realization of how toxic the whole situation was. The family that never accepted him, the ex-wife who never let go. A husband who was broken by something that happened before he even knew how to defend himself. And this guy had to walk away from all of it, not just from Peter, but from that whole side of the family, from the life they built, from the kid he loved but couldn't keep. He didn't want to leave, he wanted to fight, but he knew fighting would just drag Jack through more chaos, so he walked away. And he told me through his words that sometimes walking away is the most loving thing you can do, for yourself. For your kid, for everyone involved, I think about that guy sometimes. I hope he's okay, I hope Jack is okay, and I hope Peter gets help, but that's not his job anymore. He did the hard part, he walked away. Another story that hit close to home was about a guy 32 who had been at his first job out of college for 6 years. He started from the ground up, they trained him on everything, and his boss fought for his promotions. In those 6 years, his salary doubled from 60 to 120,000. That's a big deal for a kid fresh out of school. He respected that boss, thought of him as a mentor even. Then he got an offer from a more prestigious company, double the salary. 250,000 plus stock. That's the kind of money that changes your life, pays off your parents' mortgage, sets up your kid's college fund. He knew his old boss couldn't match it. The new comp was partially stock in the new company, and the salary was probably more than the boss himself made. So he didn't even ask. He just wrote up his transition plan, gave his notice, and sat down to explain. The boss was devastated, angry. He didn't yell, but it got heated. He questioned the guy's loyalty like it was a character flaw, like he owed something more. The guy said, "I paid you and the company back with my hard work, we're even. If anything, you got a bargain because I could have jumped ship for more money 2 years ago." He didn't say that last part out loud, but he thought it. His wife and some friends called him cold, calculating. They said he should have shown more loyalty because the company gave him so much, but the guy didn't buy it. He'd seen people walk out the door after 2 decades with a pink slip and no one shed a tear the next morning. What does loyalty to a job even mean? You give them your time, your skills, your energy, they give you a paycheck, that's the deal. He wasn't a slave, he wasn't a child, he was an employee. I thought about that story for days. I had a similar conversation with my own boss once when I gave notice at a job I'd been at for 4 years. I was making 45,000 and I got an offer for 70. My boss told me I was being disloyal, that they'd invested in me. I felt guilty for weeks. I almost backed out. But reading that guy's story made me realize the guilt was manufactured. They invested in me because I was a good employee, not out of charity. I gave them my best years. I showed up early. I stayed late. I never stole a paperclip. And in return, they paid me a fraction of what I was worth. When I left, they replaced me in 2 weeks. Nobody cried. That story also reminded me of another walking away moment, but this one was personal. A woman, 29, best friend since she was 11. They met when she just moved to a new country and her future sister-in-law introduced them. Her best friend, Sarah, was the first real friend she had in that new place. They grew up together, shared secrets. Went through breakups, family drama, everything. She married her husband when she was 26. They had a 2-year-old. Life was good. She worked in an office from 9 to 2, took a 30-minute break for a second breakfast, and sometimes walked to her husband's office, which was 5 minutes away. Sometimes she worked out of town, and she'd mention it to Sarah in casual conversations. One week she had a work trip planned for Wednesday. But Tuesday night, a red alert came through about the weather. The trip was canceled. She stayed home. Her husband went out at 6 in the morning to close his business and put up flood protection. By 7:30, he was back home making breakfast. It didn't start raining until 1 in the afternoon. They stayed home until Friday. Saturday, she went to her gym class with Sarah. After class, Sarah said they needed to talk in private. They went to her car and Sarah told her, "On Wednesday, I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out and your kid was in the car." She said she froze, but then she remembered. Wednesday, she was home with her husband all day, the entire day. He never left. She asked Sarah 3 times if she was sure it was Wednesday. Sarah confirmed it 3 times, asked for the time. Sarah said about 11 in the morning, asked if it was during the red alert. Sarah said yes. Then Sarah launched into this elaborate description of her husband making out with a gorgeous blonde Barbie lookalike in a parking lot, details about the car, the clothes, the way they were standing. She didn't scream, she didn't cry, she just said, "Okay, thanks for telling me." She drove home. She told her husband. He was confused, then angry, then horrified. They sat down and mapped out their entire Wednesday, every hour. He'd been home with her and their kid. He'd made pancakes for breakfast. They'd watched the news about the flood warnings. He'd napped on the couch while she played with the toddler. There was no window, no opportunity, none of it happened. She called Sarah the next day, asked again if she was absolutely sure. Sarah doubled down. "I saw them. Your husband is cheating on you. I'm telling you this because I love you." She said, "Sarah, I was home with him on Wednesday. I never left. He never left. We were together the entire time." There was a pause. Then Sarah said, "Maybe it was a different day." "It wasn't a different day. You said Wednesday. You said 11 in the morning. You said during the red alert. You gave me a full description. None of it happened." Sarah started crying, said she must have misremembered, that she was just trying to protect her. Then she said, "I don't know why you're so defensive. Maybe you're in denial." That's when everything changed. She didn't yell. She just said, "I'm not in denial. I'm looking at you and realizing you lied to me. You tried to destroy my marriage. I need to know why." Sarah never gave a real reason. She stumbled through explanations, said she thought she saw something, said she was confused. Said she was stressed. The woman hung up. She blocked Sarah on everything. She told her husband the full story. They talked about it for weeks. She cried. She grieved. She lost her best friend. She never got closure. She never found out why Sarah did it. Maybe jealousy, maybe loneliness. Maybe she wanted her friend to be single so they could hang out more. Some of the comments on the story said Sarah probably thought being a single mom would mean more free time for trips and girls' nights. But that doesn't make sense. It's not like she was getting free babysitting. It was just cruelty for no reason. That story stayed with me because it showed how walking away doesn't always look like a dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it's just a quiet realization during a phone call. Sometimes it's blocking a number and crying in the shower. Sometimes it's losing someone you've known for 18 years because they tried to burn your life down. The woman ended her post by saying she still didn't know why Sarah did it, but she knew one thing for sure: she could never trust her again. And she wasn't going to waste another second trying to figure out the motive. She walked away. She didn't look back. I think about that a lot. The not knowing. I have my own Sarah, a friend from college. We were inseparable for a decade. Then she told a mutual friend that my partner was cheating on me based on nothing but a picture she saw on Instagram of him standing next to a female coworker at a work event. She didn't ask me, she didn't check, she just started a rumor. By the time I found out 6 other people had heard it, I confronted her. She said she was just looking out for me. I said, you could have asked, you could have given me the benefit of the doubt, you chose the worst interpretation. We haven't spoken in 3 years. I still don't know if she was jealous or bored or just a bad friend, but I know I'm better off without her. Walking away from a friendship is weird because there's no legal process, no paperwork, no formal goodbye. You just stop calling, stop texting. You let the silence grow until it's too awkward to break. And one day you realize you haven't thought about them in months. That's the moment you know you did the right thing. I had a different story I needed to hear, and it came from a woman who wondered whether to tell her close friend not to marry his fiancé. She knew Mark from college. They were close. Mark was engaged to Laura, who he'd been with for 6 or 7 years, engaged for 2. The wedding was a month away. For the first few years, she had no problem with Laura. She seemed shy, reserved, a little quiet for their loud, argumentative friend group, but fine. Mark had a strong personality, intellectually intense, argumentative. He sometimes ran roughshod over Laura and she felt a little bad for her. But then Laura opened up. She got closer to the woman's girlfriend, Julie. They all started hanging out regularly, and as she got to know Laura better, she saw the cracks. Laura was insanely insecure and anxious. She complained constantly about minor wedding details. She trashed Mark's parents for doing nice things for her. She aired their dirty laundry in front of friends, arguing about personal stuff that Mark clearly wanted to keep private. She was cruel to him, unfair, in front of everyone. And then there was the fundamental issue. Mark wanted kids, he was firm on it. He needed a partner who would at least consider it. Laura was also firm, she didn't want kids, and she had a history of lying about her stance to keep the relationship going. The woman didn't know what to do, she asked for advice. Most people told her to stay out of it, that it wasn't her place, that the wedding was too close, that she'd lose a friend either way. But a few people told her the truth. She might be the only person in Mark's life who could tell him the ugly truth before it was too late. Before he married someone who would resent him or who he would resent. Before they had kids he wanted and she didn't, or no kids, and he spent his life wondering. I don't know what she decided. The post was from Tuesday Runefer. I never found an update, but I think about that dilemma, the cost of speaking up versus the cost of silence. The way we lie to ourselves and call it loyalty. That's the thing about walking away. Sometimes you have to walk away from your own silence, your own fear of conflict, your own desire to be liked. You have to walk away from the comfortable lie and step into the painful truth. I've been trying to do that more. To tell people the hard things before it's too late. To stop being the person who smiles and nods and then goes home and cries. To recognize that loyalty is not the same as enabling and love is not the same as letting someone drown because you're afraid of making a scene. I don't have it all figured out, but these stories, they've started to reshape the way I see my own life. They've made me braver, made me realize that walking away is not a failure. It's the most honest thing you can do. And the sooner you do it, the sooner you can find the people, the jobs, the lives that actually deserve you. I remember another story that hit different. It was about a guy who'd been at his first job for 6 years. They trained him from the ground up. He had a boss who fought for him, got him promotions, doubled his salary over that time. But then he got an offer from a more prestigious company with better growth and double the pay. We're talking serious money, 120,000 jumping to 250,000, stock options in the new company. The salary alone was probably more than his old boss made. He didn't even ask his boss to try to match it. He knew it was impossible, so he just gave his notice and a transition plan, professional, respectful, but his boss was devastated, angry. They had a heated discussion and his boss questioned his loyalty like it was some kind of character flaw. The guy said, I paid you and the company back with my hard work. We're at least even. Arguably, you got a bargain because I could have jumped ship 2 years ago. He didn't say that last part out loud, but he thought it. His wife and some friends told him he was being cold and calculating, that he should have shown more loyalty because the company gave him so much. But he saw it differently. He knew his worth. He'd watched people walk out the door after 2 decades with a pink slip and no one shed a tear the morning after. So what the hell was loyalty to a job supposed to mean anyway? That story stuck with me because I'd been in a similar spot. I worked for a small company for 4 years. My boss was a good guy, really invested in me. I learned everything there, but I got an offer from a competitor for almost double the pay. I was scared to leave because I felt guilty, like I owed them. I stayed another year and by the end I was miserable. I resented them. I started doing the bare minimum. When I finally quit, my boss was pissed anyway, so all that loyalty I thought I was showing just delayed the inevitable. I should have left sooner. The guy in the story got a verdict of not the asshole. Most people agreed with him. Loyalty in a workplace is a one-way street. Companies don't show you loyalty when times get tough. They lay you off without blinking. So why should you give them loyalty when a better opportunity comes? It's a transaction. You work, they pay, that's it. I thought about that when I was stuck in my own toxic relationship. I kept telling myself I owed him something because we'd been together so long, because he helped me through a rough patch, because he loved me once. But love isn't a debt. You can't pay it back with suffering. Another story that I heard after I finally left was from a woman who found out her husband was cheating with his ex-wife. And I mean, the details were brutal. She was 27, married for 3 years, together 6. They had a 7-year-old son that they'd adopted after marriage. She loved that boy like her own. Her husband was bisexual, which she was fine with, but his family was homophobic. They always pushed him to get back together with his ex-wife Allison. They went to his family's town for their son's birthday party. The mother-in-law invited Allison without telling anyone. She showed up in the middle of the party. The woman kept it together for the kid. She spent the whole time playing with him and his cousins. Then when it was time to cut the cake, she noticed her husband and Allison were missing. She went inside and found them in his old childhood bedroom, taking their clothes off. She didn't scream, she didn't cry. She walked back outside and finished the party. She cut the cake, she opened presents, she waited until everyone was leaving. Then her husband and Allison came back downstairs. He took her aside and started yelling at her for cutting the cake without him. She just looked at him and said, "I'm sorry, I just thought you'd be too busy getting into your ex-wife's pants." He went quiet. She took her son and left for the hotel. The updates got worse. The ex-wife started stalking her, called her work, left threatening voicemails. The husband tried to gaslight her, said it was nothing, that she was overreacting. But then she found out the ex-wife's daughter, the one from her new marriage, was actually a child she'd had with a 14-year-old. She'd been grooming minors. The ex-wife was ultimately arrested for child exploitation. The woman divorced her husband, got a restraining order. She moved across the country with her son. She said in the final update that she still loved her husband in some ways, but she could never trust him again. And she had to protect her child from that ex-wife. That story made me sick, but it also made me realize how much we try to save relationships that are already dead. She walked away from a man she loved because he chose to cheat on her at their son's birthday party with the woman who was a predator. There's no coming back from that. There's no loyalty that justifies staying. I think about that when I feel the old guilt creep in, when I wonder if I should have tried harder. I remember that I didn't owe him anything. I owed myself safety. I owed myself peace. I walked away and I'm not going back. There's another story that stuck with me about a woman whose best friend tried to sabotage her marriage. She was 29, married for a few years with a 2-year-old. She met her best friend Sarah when she was 11, right after moving to a new country. They'd been close ever since. Her husband was 31. They had a solid life. She worked in an office from 9 to 2 with a 30-minute break. Sometimes she'd walk 5 minutes to her husband's office and grab a coffee with him. Sometimes she'd go to a cafe nearby. Every now and then she had to travel for work, and she'd mention it to Sarah casually. One week she was supposed to travel on a Wednesday, but there was a red alert weather warning Tuesday night. The work trip got canceled. She stayed home with her toddler. Her husband left at 6 in the morning to go secure his business and put up flood protection. He was back by 7:30 and made breakfast. It didn't even start raining until 1 in the afternoon. At 3 o'clock, Sarah texted asking if she was home safe because the flooding was bad where she was supposed to travel. She replied home safe, and that was it. They didn't go out until Friday. Saturday they had a gym class together. Sarah said they needed to talk in private. They went to the woman's car and Sarah told her, "On Wednesday I saw your husband with a woman. They were making out and your kid was in the car." She froze. For a second her heart stopped, but then she remembered she had been working from home with her husband and baby for 2 days straight. There was no way. She asked Sarah 3 times if she was sure it was this week's Wednesday. Sarah confirmed each time. She asked about the time. Sarah said about 11 in the morning. She asked if it was during the red alert. Sarah said yes. Then Sarah launched into a whole description, her husband making out with some gorgeous blonde Barbie lookalike. The woman just sat there. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She said, "That's impossible. I was home with him all day Wednesday. He never left. The weather alert canceled my trip. We were together from 6 in the morning until we put the baby to bed." Sarah's face went white. She started stammering. Oh, maybe it was a different day, but the woman had already pulled out her phone and showed the weather alert from Tuesday night. She showed the text exchange from Wednesday afternoon. She said, "You asked me if I was home safe. You knew I was supposed to be traveling. You tried to make me think my husband cheated while I was gone, but I wasn't gone." Sarah broke down, admitted she made it up, said she just wanted more time with her friend, thought if she became a single mom they could hang out and travel more. She didn't think it through. The woman cut her off completely, blocked her number, told their mutual friends what happened. Some of them tried to say Sarah was just lonely, that people make mistakes, But the woman knew better. She realized Sarah had been planting seeds of doubt for months, little comments about her husband working late, about how he looked at other women. She just hadn't noticed because she trusted her. After that, she changed everything. She stopped sharing her schedule on social media. She stopped telling people when she traveled. She and her husband got into therapy to rebuild the trust she didn't even know was cracked. It took months, but they came out stronger. That story hit me hard because I had a friend like that. Not someone who tried to sabotage my marriage, but someone who fed on my unhappiness. Every time I complained about my ex, she'd agree and amplify it. She'd tell me I deserved better, that I should leave. But when I actually started making moves to leave, she got weird, distant. She didn't want me to be happy, she wanted me to be miserable with her. I walked away from that friendship too. It's lonely sometimes. But I'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who are rooting for my downfall. I think about that other story too, the one about the friend Mark and his fiancée Laura. The woman who posted that one was 30, considering whether to tell her close friend Mark that he shouldn't marry Laura. They'd been together 6 years, engaged 2, wedding in a month. At first, Laura seemed shy and reserved, but over time she opened up, and it turned out she was insanely insecure and anxious. She complained about everything, his parents' small requests, nice things they did for her. She aired their dirty laundry in public. She was cruel to him in front of friends. And they had a fundamental disagreement about a core issue: kids. Mark wanted them, Laura didn't. And she'd been lying about it for years to keep him. The woman didn't know what to do. She asked for advice. Most people said stay out of it, but a few said she might be the only one who could tell him the truth before it was too late. I don't know what she chose. That post was from 2014, no update. But I think about it all the time, the cost of speaking up versus the cost of silence. I've been trying to learn that lesson. To walk away from my own fear and tell the hard truth before it's too late. Because staying silent is its own kind of poison, and I've drunk enough of that to last a lifetime.